All right, week 7, another Millionaire Maker. Jason, you ready?
Hey, I'm ready to roll. Taking the top spot this week for sure.
I hope so. How about how about the Bengals coming into town? You think the Colts
Uh,
can
you
stop
know,
Sanu?
it's it's going to be a tough matchup for him. I think the Colts defense has been playing really well. I think probably surprisingly well as a Colts fan. I didn't think that they'd be this good, especially with the loss of Mathis, having lost Landry for a few weeks. But it's been surprising. So it's going to be a tough matchup. But it's going to be a high-scoring affair too. I think both offenses are going to get theirs. I think most of it might go Bernard's way though. Sanu will get some, but Brandon Tate kind of broke out a little bit last week, caught some passes, and Dane Sanzenbacher is going to get some too.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be on Sanu as well after last week. He's still relatively cheap for a number one. He got a ton of targets. It's just, do you think they'll put Vontae Davis on him?
There's a good chance of that, and really the Colts defense does play the pass pretty well. I mean overall, so I think that it's going to be a tough matchup. I'm actually steering clear of most of the Bengals with the exception of Bernard this week, and most of my lineups.
All right. Well, for those that don't know, this is the third week running of the Millionaire Maker. DraftKings is at it again. First couple weeks. First week it was a Manning stack. Second week, Andrew Luck took the first spot with a almost perfect lineup. This week, just some thoughts. I've had exposure to Manning the last couple weeks, just haven't built my team around him, and this week I am. I'm in double-digit entries this week, and about 60% have some Manning stacks in them. With the milestone right around the corner, I think he's going to hit it at home. I think he's going to hit it big. San Francisco, they're still a nice defense, but they gave up 200 yards in the first half to Austin Davis last week. So while they're strong in the run, I see a lot of action for Manning in the pass. And their overlay has been really big so far this week. So DraftKings has plastered the promotion all across their site, trying to get more entries. Right now, I think it's at about 35,000 out of 93. So we might have better odds this week. Any thoughts this week, Jason?
I agree, and like you said, we've seen a lot of the stacks coming. I don't know if it's going to be Manning this week. I'm thinking an Aaron Rodgers stack could take it with the matchup against the Panthers. Even possibly a Brian Hoyer stack. I spoke about that in some of our other stuff that we put out this week. Brian Hoyer with Jordan Cameron are some of his options just because of how much you can save there and spend elsewhere. So there's definitely some value. We've seen the salary swing quite a bit for some players, and there's some value out there. So it's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, there are a ton of options this week at quarterback. There are a ton of high over-unders, and all the wide receiver values went way down, so you can get some solid number ones across the board, under 6,000 salary. So there will be some interesting lineups that have some exposure to Kaepernick and a Rodgers and a Flacco. So diversify and hit some of those big over-unders. All right, well, let's start with your optimal lineup. For those that don't know, Jason and I have been going head-to-head every week. Right now we're at 3-3 in terms of our record, and each week we just show our optimal lineup and go over our thoughts on the process. So, Jason, why don't you start us off?
All right. Well, as I said, I think that it could be Aaron Rodgers, which is why I went with a Packers-led stack. I've got Aaron Rodgers, and I've got him coupled at wide receiver with Devontae Adams. Devontae Adams is the least expensive between Jordy Nelson, Randall Cobb, and himself, and I think that he's going to get a lot of targets. Last week he got 8 targets, caught 6 of them, and went for 77 yards, and really could have caught a touchdown. So I think that this is going to be a decent week for him, a high over-under game. I like that matchup. Running back Giovanni Bernard against my Indianapolis Colts. The Colts they're actually playing really well on defense, so I think that it's going to be a tough matchup for the Bengals as a whole. But I think Bernard gets his, and he's so involved in the pass game as well. Obviously, this is a PPR league we play, so with the injury to AJ Green, he's getting a lot of targets and a lot of work, and I think he's got value this week. Justin Forsett seems like he's taken over that number one role. You're still seeing some Bernard Pearson, some Lorenzo Taliaferro work in later on, in the later downs or possibly just a change of pace. But Forsett really seems to be the guy they're rolling with, and up against the Atlanta Falcons, you've got to like that matchup. Already spoke about Devontae Adams. Now, one of the things that Sam said, we've got some really inexpensive guys here. Brandon Marshall and Golden Tate, both number ones, because it looks like Calvin Johnson's not going to be playing again this week, even though he's listed as questionable. All signs are indicating that he may not play. Brandon Marshall up against the Miami Dolphins, I think he's going to get his, and he's 6,300 this week. So really inexpensive options there for number ones. Tight end is Larry Donnell. Now, kind of been quiet the past couple of weeks, but there's a lot of upside, especially with the injury to Victor Cruz. I think that the Giants bounced back from that loss last week. I mean, it was really just an embarrassment. And I don't know that it's going to be a super high-scoring affair, but again, it's an upside play, and for the price, I think that Donnell has a lot more upside than some of the other options, and that's what you want in GPP. At flex, I've got Andre Holmes, obviously the number one there in Oakland. He's Derek Carr's favorite target, so he's getting a lot of looks, and for a number one at his price, which 4,800 right now, can't pass that up. Defense, Bills looking to bounce back at home against Minnesota, and Minnesota has been giving up a ton of points lately, so I like the Bills in that matchup, and so I think this is the one you're going to see at the top of the board.
All right, I hope so. I love the Bills this week. It's hard to fall in love with the defense, but all signs point to the Bills this week. I have a ton of coverage on them. Just to talk through your lineup a bit, I really like the Rodgers play. I'm going pretty heavy on Lacy this week. I think this is a bounce-back week for him, and Carolina is terrible against the run, but they happen to also be terrible against the pass. So it'll be interesting to see who gets the points in that game. It is a high over-under. Bernardi's always going to give you some points pass catching, and you're right with Forsett. He has taken over the number one spot. Pierce got more carries last week, but it was in the later stages of the game when the game was out of reach. I do think Pierce is a long-term option in Baltimore, so I'll be interested to see how they work him in. And against the Falcons, Forsett and Pierce could be a play. They're so bad against the run. So I think that's a great play. Devontae Adams, as you said, coming up, tons of targets, big red zone target. Marshall's always solid. Super value with Marshall, 6,300, and Golden Tate, he's around the same price, another great value. And Donald, as you spoke about, upside, and that's what you want in GPP, and he had a terrible game last week, so hopefully a lot of people will be off of him and he blows up for you. Holmes, same thing. He's a number one on a team that's always behind. That's what you want, and he's getting a ton of targets last couple weeks, so hopefully he continues that. I like it. It just doesn't touch this lineup. And here we go. Here it is, the actual winning lineup of the third Millionaire Maker. Can you see that fine?
Yep. All
right, so at number one, I've got my QB, Peyton Manning. He's going to have a ton of coverage this week, but I don't care. He's going for that milestone. He's going to hit it at home. What does he need, 3 touchdowns, Molly?
Yep.
He needs 3. I'm hoping he gets 5. And it's just a matter of who he's going to go to. I've got him paired with Demaryius and Julius Thomas. That took a lot of my salary, so I had to take some chances. But as you'll see, I think they're calculated chances. Eddie Lacy, he's been splitting which starts lately, but Green Bay wants Lacy to be their long-term solution, and if he gets going early, he could take the bulk of those carries. And it's a super high over/under. Carolina's a terrible defense. They're going to be in the red zone a lot, so hopefully he gets a couple touchdowns and breaks out. Also, it could be a good contrarian play. A lot of people are doubting Lacy, as they rightfully should. He's been terrible this year, but he did have that one big game, and I'm hoping for another. Ben Tate, I just love this play. Jacksonville is terrible against the run. Tate's been getting a ton of touches since he's been back. The Browns' formula is working. It's run the ball and put Hoyer in some nice play action situations and don't ask too much of them. I see more of the same with Ben Tate. And earlier in the week, Jason, you spoke about Crowell, and maybe West is getting into the mix. Crowell could even be another play against Jacksonville. Anquan Bolden, I really like that game. It's the highest over-under of the week. And to me, Bolden is the receiver for the 49ers to own. Crabtree's been falling off a bit. Stevie Johnson and Brandon Lloyd have been taking his reps. But Bolden's always tough. They're going to have to throw to stay in the game. And if Peyton is having a big game with these other receivers, that means that San Francisco is going to have a big game to stay up. Larry Fitz started off slow, but he started to get his targets lately. I think Michael Floyd is the bigger play here for a lot of people, but I'm going with Fitzgerald. He's still getting a ton of targets, 98 yards, touchdown last week. With Palmer in the game, he's going to get his, and up against the Oakland defense, a good shot at blowing up there. Julius Thomas has just been killing it. I mean, if it's not Demaryius, it's Julius. I'm hoping they both go off for 2 touchdowns each, and then I'll have a pretty nice lineup. Jonathan Stewart, I think this is a great play. He's in a ton of my lineups. He's coming off of an injury, which means a lot of people are not going to own him. He's the starting running back there. Whitaker and Reeves are both questionable. there's no way Williams is playing, and so he could get a ton of work. And Packers are dead last in the league, believe it or not, worse than Atlanta in run defense. So Stewart could be a great play at 3,700. He opens up a lot of room for you. And then lastly, I had to take a cheaper defense. I couldn't fit my bills in, so I took the Cowboys. Molly just told me the Browns are at the same salary, so I'll probably work in the Browns as well with this lineup. I'm hoping they get some pressure on Eli. Their running game hasn't been strong, and the Cowboys have been a surprise defense. So if they can get some pressure on Eli, have some turnovers at home, and get some TDs, I could very well be a millionaire after this weekend. What do you think?
I do like the Manning play. He's definitely. It's almost as if they slowed down a little bit last week, so he could get the milestone at home this week. So I do like that play, and I absolutely agree with Lacey. He's been frustrating. He's burned us, but I think that he's going to definitely get some. Ben Tate's a great play. Now, I did talk about Kroll earlier in the week, and I think that Kroll is a nice value play, but Terrence West is going to be active this week. We saw last week he was a healthy scratch, so that might eat into Kroll's value a little bit, but Tate's a safe play, and that's been what they've been doing. I mean, it's a run-first offense, and it's running to set up the pass for Hoyer, so I like what they've got there, and again, you've got a lot of upside everywhere else. Larry Fitzgerald's looking a lot better with Carson Palmer back in the lineup, so that boosts all your Arizona Cardinals options. You can actually start starting some of those guys other than Ellington again. So, yeah, I like it, but again, it's going to be maybe second or third because I might have one or two ahead of you.
All right, I'll take that. All right, well, if anyone has any last-minute questions, you can hit up Jason at Fantasy Rambler. We're also talking about doing a Q&A on the site so that you can post your questions and we can answer that. You can always find us at Fantasy Football Money League. Good luck. Hope this helps. And time to make $1 million. See you, Jason.
Take care.